Hi, it's me again with a review of Chapter 1 of Marketing 1. Now that you've had an opportunity to review the course material and the notes and read the chapter for Chapter 1, I just want to take you through it again in a sequential way. First of all, Chapter 1 really is an introduction to the whole concept of marketing. And one of the things that you have to take away from this is that what exactly is marketing? And I want you to be aware that marketing is much more than just selling. It is the concept of working with the customer to provide what the customer needs, to create a level of satisfaction and value for the customer, be that an organizational customer or an end user customer like you or I would be as we go to a store and purchase a product. So that is the general core of Chapter 1. In terms of the key things that we'll be looking at in Chapter 1, we're going to be looking at effectively the raw definition of what marketing is, and intuitively from that then what marketing is not. We're also going to be looking at what are some of the requirements for marketing to actually occur. Marketing just doesn't happen. There has to be some major elements that take place in order for us to say formally that marketing is actually taking place. Also, we're going to look at some of the factors that influence marketing and what marketing does to help influence those factors. As we move through and towards the second half of the chapter, we're looking at some of what we call the eras of marketing, how marketing has evolved over the course of years. And from that, some of the current issues in marketing. So let's begin. First of all, when we look at Marketing 1, what we're looking at is something that we're fairly familiar with. Unlike accounting or another course that you may do, everybody is relatively familiar with marketing because the very fact that we're customers and the very fact that we have access to television, internet, and all of those wonderful tools, we are exposed to countless advertisements. Now, advertisements are an aspect of marketing, but there are many more aspects of marketing that we're influenced by as well. We communicate with companies, we phone them up, 1-800 numbers, websites, these sorts of things. So there's a to and fro between you, the buyer, and the seller. So marketing is really a two-way street. That's important. So if we're marketing experts, then we need to say, well, what are some of the things that would really occur or need to occur for marketing to happen? Well, first of all, we have seen here in this text a definition of what it takes for marketing to occur. So, in order for marketing to occur, we need 4 basic things to be in place. First of all, 2 parties have to have unsatisfied needs. You're not going to buy anything unless you need something. They're not going to sell anything unless they have something to sell. So what we have is 2 or more parties have to be privy to the marketing effort, one of which has needs to buy, the other has needs to sell. That's the first point. The second point is there has to be a desire and an ability to satisfy those needs. You might for example, to buy a Mercedes-Benz, but if you can't afford a Mercedes-Benz, you don't have the ability. Marketing won't occur. There might be a nice winter coat for sale, but it's June. You might not have the desire to buy it at that point in time. Marketing won't occur. The third point is you need to have some way to communicate. Take, for example, did you know I'm selling something? And you can have a really good deal on it. If you didn't know that, would you buy it from me? However, if I communicate with you as I am now, and you communicate back to me and say, hey, I'd like to buy it, then marketing can occur. So that need to communicate is critical. We see that through advertising, signage, and all of the sorts of media that marketers use are a form of communication, so they make us aware, the buyer aware, that the product is for sale. The fourth and critical element is you need something to exchange. Without something to exchange, the marketing process won't happen. How many times have I gone to buy something and realized that I left my wallet at home? Marketing doesn't occur. So that's an important section. As we move through, We also need to look about finding needs. What exactly is marketing? What's marketed? How is it marketed? And one of the things that you have to learn here is that marketing is not an accident. It is a purposeful procedural process. And in that purposeful procedural process, companies adjust and organizations adjust 4 basic things: the price of what they're selling, the product itself can be manipulated by the company, how the product is communicated or promoted is managed by the company, and where the product is sold, the place factor. So price, place, product, and promotion are collectively known as 4 Ps, or the marketing mix. So they're within the control of an organization. But the organization, being an entity, is influenced by the outside as well. When we look at the outside world, there are some things that influence that. We look at environmental factors. And those environmental factors consist of really 5 major things: social and demographic forces, which we're going to look at more in Chapter 3. We're also looking at economic forces. Can people afford to buy it? We're going to look at things like regulatory forces. What rules and regulations are in place? Technological forces, changes in technology. And finally, and one that's very obvious, is the competitive forces. What's going on there in the world of the competitor? So that's important as well. As we move through too, the second half of the chapter looks at something called the eras of marketing. The eras of marketing deal with a timeline. You can imagine time. And if we think about the start of marketing occurring back in the Industrial Revolution in the 1800s, that was, for our purposes, the start of the marketing era. And that was a period of which new factories and things were being built that never existed before. People came in from the farms, came in from the country to work in factories, and they produced products. And there was such huge demand for those products that they didn't have to sell them. They sold naturally. We call this era the production era. And that era more or less was in place until around 1930, when the Depression hit. And the Depression changed the whole game. In other words, people couldn't afford to buy those products anymore. The game was changed. Companies had to take a perspective of selling stuff to people who just couldn't afford to buy anymore. So look at me, look at me, look at me, began the sales era. And we saw the sales era track right through until about 1960. And at that point, the baby boom generation, the generation that grew up after World War II, who were better educated and more discriminating shoppers, said, we don't necessarily want the products you're selling. We want you to make something we want. That was really the start of a new era called the marketing era. And in that era, effectively, what had happened is that people told companies what they want. And it was the first time that there was a two-way flow between what the consumer is wanting and what the company is willing to provide. As we move through the 60s through to the 80s, we've got a couple more eras, and those eras tend to be focused on marketing as a two-way communication path. So you're going to see a marketing orientation era and the marketing-oriented eras as being a two-way flow and a focus on knowing the customer. And as we move into this new generation, we're saying not only are we focused on the customer as a whole, we're focusing on the customer as an individual. Companies could direct down so that they can market to an individual customer to produce exactly what the customer wants. Within all this concept, the chapter clues up with a discussion on the issue of social responsibility and ethics. And we're going to look at social responsibility and ethics later on in more detail. But effectively, what it means is that as we move into an era of worrying about an individual customer, we got to worry about society as well, a much broader concept. So companies are encouraged and are encouraging us to look at a broader picture than just making money. What can we do to make the world a better place? And that effectively is a short definition of what's going on in Chapter 1. Again, having reviewed all of this, having watched this video, I'm hoping you have a better understanding. If you don't, please email me, phone me, whatever it takes, and I'll guaranteed come and help you. Okay, thanks for watching.